So, for example, in SF, no one used Rusto. There was like this spot that I used to rack from, a paint shop. All the Krylon behind glass, with like a dude, with like the paint mixing dude near it, and all the Rusto in the back by itself. You know, less than half the selection, and I would go, and I could take the bus there. It wasn't far, and I would just go there and rack Rusto. I wouldn't burn it. I would just take, whatever, 8 cans, 10 cans, like, and then come back in a week or whatever, and they never noticed. I mean, it was crazy. It was the spot. Oh, I can't remember the name of that place, but and then I was hitting spots that were like, brick walls and these other places where, just on the technology side of things, like, people didn't know what I was doing. Like, how is he painting on this brick wall? I can't paint on a brick wall because they're using Krylon, because Krylon was just like the hip hop graffiti paint with like the better logo, and it was like, or for whatever reason, or because it had more colors and it was glossier and it was nicer, and it was easier to get caps, and people would try to put a Krylon cap on a Rusto can and it would explode, and they would just kind of like not want to deal with it. Whereas I was coming from a place that everyone only used Rusto for streets, and that was just normal, so it was normal for me. Same Pilot Silvers, like, I would go to all these like office spots, and there'd be like boxes and boxes of Pilot Silvers. Very popular in New York at the time, not popular anywhere else. So I would rack them by the box, and have like boxes and boxes of these, and then I'd be hitting like mailboxes, right? That's like par for the course here in the city, but not out there. So it really made a big. It was just, a part technology. Well, going back to technology, right? So technology is like your iPhone. It's also like a fucking Stone Tools. And like making my own ink and markers at the time is essentially like, my own technology, my own tool, that was different from what anyone else had. And then it also created its own aesthetic, which was different from what anyone else had. So it stood out. It wasn't just cheap, it was free. I had an unlimited supply. And so I just went down that path because that was just my style. Like, I didn't pay for paint. I didn't pay for my materials. That was like kind of where I was from. You didn't do that. I mean, it was okay if you did that, like, for like dudes who pieced and needed very specific things, fine. But generally speaking, that was frowned upon. And so that's just like I said, that's just like kind of the attitude that I had, and I brought to this place that was also like, the streets were cleaner. I had more space to do stuff. It had more of an effect. And at the same time, there was a growing, I guess, I'm sorry, because I know they would hate this, but like, the beginnings of like street artish things happening, that was also a very interesting thing. Zines, communication, media. You get your zine and it has pictures. You're like, oh, all of a sudden now graffiti's not just in New York. It's in these other places all of a sudden. And they have this style that, I mean, I guess spray can art is the first kind of media-based thing that portrayed that. But then with zines, you saw more and more that people could like send their photos in and like have some sort of correspondence. That's communication and media. And that had a big effect. Although not for KRINK. Sorry. Go ahead, listeners.
One of the things that I've been thinking of as you're talking about this essentially use of tools and technology to further, um, just to further things in general, is that one of the things that separates the human species from pretty much every other species is the extensive use of tools. Using tools extensively to gain some sort of massive advantage that you otherwise wouldn't have. And it's like when you think about things like whether it be computer technologies, internet, or even just more primitive technologies like the printing press and steamboat engines, and how in each of those things, like it brought about a massive seismic shift in the way that not just the inventor of the tool, but also how everyone in that field and just the world as a whole uses that shit. And then when I bring that back, like thinking about your situation with KRINK and how it's essentially just like it's essentially just that. That's what happened in a graffiti and also artistic sense. Um, and I've read about your history and how this started with all stolen materials. As a graffiti writer, just racking, making ink because it's natural. Like, and that's what I'm seeing. Like, it's been a natural progression. Like, you were making them in your bathroom by the window with a fan in literally quartz. And then you would learn Photoshop essentially at Alife, which Photoshop is, of course, in today, like it's key for doing something of this magnitude. And just like step by step from learning how to make the inks to all this shit, when you think about how it progressed naturally and all the roadblocks and things you overcame along the way, just to learn how to do this, because probably there is no like teaching someone like this is what you have to do to make a KRINK in this time period. It's the person who's figuring it out for themselves little by little. When you think about all that, what really comes to your mind?
When I think about
The humble origins of, like you were saying, like a black MacBook and like a Canon G7, relatively primitive tools,
today,
to then make, you know, some ill thing, or making them in your bathroom. Like, I doubt you make them in your bathroom anymore by huddled over by a window. When you think about those humble origins and just very, very basic and how the progression has been natural, what do you think about?
well, I mean, one thing, of course, I mean, I'm so grateful over the years to, people have been so positive and and have helped me, and inspired me or pushed me or, been like, no, this is a good thing. Like, that has been amazing. Like, globally, um, I was making ink and markers and writing graffiti just because I was a graffiti writer, right? There's no other reason. It was just like having fun and goofing around, and following this process, by whatever I thought I should be doing at the time or whatever I was interested in. And yeah, like, to be making a living out of it is pretty amazing, and to have traveled and had some of the experiences, it's been amazing. It's been great. And I'm very thankful for that.